call by reference method is used. Here I have given an example. Suppose you want to write a function to print sum of two numbers. Means here you have to define a user defined function to find sum of two numbers. So, I have defined a user defined function here. This is the return type, name of function, number of parameters with the data type. This is the syntax how to define a function. Suppose the name of function is sum. Here I have passed two integer type variables a and b. So, if you pass two integer values and want to find the sum of that these two integer values, the result automatically it will be integer type. So, I have specified the integer as a return type. So, you to store the result I have declared a variable c, and with the help of plus operator I have added these two value of these two variables and result is stored in c, and with the help of return function I have returned the value of this result. To whom it will result the value, return the value? It will return the value to the main function where we are going to call this function. So, here you can see, first of all I have declared two header files iostream and conio.h. Then in the main function I have declared two variables m and n. With the help of cout I have printed a statement enter two numbers. With the help of cin, suppose you have entered two numbers, first in m and second in n. Here I have called this function. This is basically a function definition. Here I missed a statement. Basically you have to declare this function here, means int sum, int comma, int semicolon, and this is how to call a function. This is the first method, call by value. Here I have specified the function name and number of arguments. The value of m and n, value of m will be passed to the a variable and value of n is passed to b variable. It will calculate the sum of these two variables, and the result it will return, it will store in variable d, and with the help of cout I have printed a statement sum is equal to then value of d. So, this is how you can define a function, how you can declare a function, and how you can call a function. Next, there is it's a very important question, what is the difference between call by value and call by address. So, these are basically the two main difference between call by value and call by address. As in case of call by value, values of variables are passed in function call, and in case of call by address, addresses of variables are passed in function call. In case of call by value, a copy of actual arguments is passed to formal arguments. I will tell you now what is actual argument and what is formal arguments. And in case of call by address, actual arguments are passed to function call. So, first of all, before discussing this difference between call by value and call by address, you have to know about the pointer. You have to have some knowledge about the pointer. Pointer is basically a special variable which contains address of another variable. Why we call it as a special variable? Because simple variable always contains value, and pointer variable always contains address of similar type of another variable. And basically star symbol is used to define this pointer. Here I have given an example. Suppose you want to swap values of two variables with the help of call by value and call by address. So, this symbol is basically used for pointer. So, here I have defined swap means interchange. Suppose you want to interchange the value of two variables. Here I have defined a function swap. Void is the return type, means it does not return any value to the calling function. Swap is the name of function. In this I have passed two variables of integer type. With the help of a third temporary variable, I have interchanged the value of these two variables and print the values. First of all, let us discuss the call by value function. Then in case of main, first of all I have declared two variables whose value I want to interchange. With the help of cout I have print enter two numbers. Suppose I have entered two values, first in a and second in b. Then here I have called that function by using call by value method. The value, suppose you have entered 2 in a and 3 in b, the value of a and b. So, these arguments, the main arguments, these are called actual argument and these are called formal arguments. the function arguments actually. So in case of call by value, I told you earlier that a copy of actual arguments is passed to formal arguments. So if you change the formal arguments, there will be no difference at actual arguments. Suppose in this case you have passed 2 in A and 3 in B, a copy of 2 and 3 will be passed to this A and B. Here in this function the value of A and B will be interchanged. Here it will print A is equal to 3 and B is equal to 2, but in case of main it will print A is equal to 2 and B is equal to 3 because in this case a copy of actual arguments is passed to formal arguments. So the original value does not reflect. In this case call by address, the similar structure, first of all I have declared two variables A and B, then with the help of cout I have displayed a statement enter two numbers. With the help of cin the two values are entered in A and B. Then I have called a function swap, and in this case the first difference, as in case of call by value the values of variable are passed, and in case of call by address the addresses of variables are passed. And addresses of variables are passed, it will store, address is always stored in a pointer variable. So here I have described pointer variables. So when you will pass the address of a variable, so in function you have to put this pointer, because pointer is a special variable which contains address of similar type of another variable. So in this case it will copy actual arguments to the formal arguments. So the original value will reflect in this case. Suppose you will pass 2 and 3, 2 in A and 3 in B, it will pass the original value in these two variables, it will interchange the value, means A is equal to 3, B is equal to 2, and in case of main it will also print A is equal to 3 and B is equal to 2. So this is the main difference between call by value and call by address. So last thing in this function topic is recursion. Recursion is basically defined as when a function calls itself, that is called recursion. As here I have discussed an example, write a program to find factorial of a number using recursion. So here I have defined a function that will call itself. This is the function main, it is calling itself. So let us start with the main function. In the main I have declared one variable of integer type. With the help of cout I have printed a statement enter a number, and with the help of cin suppose we have entered a number 5. This is how to call a function by using call by value method. This 5 is passed in this variable n. Here I have declared a variable of integer type f which is used to store the result. First of all I have checked if number is equal to 0 or number is equal to 1, then return 1, because the factorial of 0 or 1 is 1. Otherwise if you entered a large number than 0 or 1, then value of factorial is number into factorial of number minus 1. You can write, suppose you want to find the factorial of 5, factorial of 5 is equal to 5 into factorial of 4, means number into factorial of number minus 1. So in this case this function is calling itself, that is called recursion. Suppose you have passed a number 5 here. So first of all it will check if 5 is equal to 0 or 5 is equal to 1. Condition is false, the control will move to the else block. The value of f is equal to 5 into factor of 4. Function is called, the new value of n is 4. It will again check n is equal to 0 or 1, condition false. The value of f is equal to 5 into 4 into factor of 3, means 20 into factor of 3, then 60 into factor of 2, then 120 into factor of 1. So in this case it will return 1. So total value of 120 will be returned and it will be stored in this variable d. So this is how recursion works. Recursion means when a function calls itself. The next topic we are going to discuss is storage classes. Storage classes are basically used to describe where the value of variable is stored, first thing, in memory or in register. Second, what will be the default value of variable, means if you haven't assigned any value to a variable, by default what value it will have. third thing, what is the scope of variable? And the last one, what is life of variable? Scope means either local to the block or global, and the life means till what time it holds the value. And these are different types of storage classes. First is automatic storage class, then register storage class, then static storage class, and the last one is external storage class. So with each storage class we have to describe these 4 points. So first is automatic storage class. In automatic storage class, value of variable is always stored in memory. First thing, default value of variable is garbage value, means if you haven't assigned any value to a variable, it will print a number, any garbage value of the range of that variable. Scope of variable is local to the block in which that variable is defined, and the life of variable is till the program control is in that block. So to declare a variable of automatic storage class, we will use auto keyword. Next is register storage class. In this case, value of variable is stored in register, rest all points are same, means default value is garbage value, scope is local, and life till the control is in that block. And to declare a variable of this storage class, we use register keyword. Next is static storage class. In this case, value of variable is stored in memory, and default value of variable is 0. So if in any program you want the default value of any variable is 0, you have to declare that variable of static storage class. And scope in this case, value of variable persists between different blocks, and the life of variable is till the program executes. So basically a static keyword is used to declare a variable of this storage class. External storage class, in this case value of variable is stored in memory, default value is garbage value, scope of variable is global, means once you have defined a variable, its value will be used in all the functions you have defined in that file, and the life of variable is till the program executes. And external keyword is basically used to declare variable of this type. So these things that we have discussed is all about the procedural programming, and C++ also supports some features of object oriented programming. So basically these are the two different programming approaches. First is procedural programming and another is object oriented programming. So let us first discuss what is the difference between procedural programming and object oriented programming. So first, in case of procedural programming, it basically executes a series of procedures, and in case of object oriented programming, it is basically a collection of objects. Means in case of procedural programming, the main stress is on procedures, and in case of object oriented programming, the main stress is on objects. Procedural programming always follows top down programming approach, and object oriented programming, it always follows bottom up programming approach. In case of procedural programming, the major focus, as I told you earlier, is on procedures. In case of object oriented programming, the main focus is on objects. Data reusability is not possible in procedural programming, means if you want to reuse the data, there is no such facility in procedural programming. But in case of object oriented programming, data reusability is one of the main feature of object oriented programming that you can use with the help of inheritance. Data hiding is not possible in procedural programming. Besides, in case of object oriented programming, it is one of the main feature. You can hide the data by using the private access specifier. So procedural programming, it is simple to implement. However, object oriented programming, it is complex to implement. Example of procedural programming, here I have described like Fortran, COBOL. It is example of procedural programming languages, and example of object oriented programming language as C++ and Java. So let us discuss what are the different advantages of object-oriented programming over procedural programming. So first advantage, there is a concept called class which makes it possible to define subclasses of data objects, which allows us to share some or all of the main features of that class. This property is called inheritance. As I told you earlier, data reusability is one of the main concepts of object oriented programming. So that is implemented basically with the help of one of the feature of object oriented programming, that is called inheritance. Next advantage is, since a class defines only the data it needs to be concerned with, when an object of that class is created, the code will not be able to accidentally access other program data. This characteristics of data hiding provides greater system security. So as I told you earlier, in case of procedural programming, there is no concept of data hiding. However, in object-oriented programming case, we can hide data with the help of private access specifiers. So any member, if you define any member of a class as private, it will not be accessed or modified by a function which is defined outside that class. So data hiding is one of the main feature of object-oriented programming. Next is, the definition of a class is reusable not only by the program for which it is created, but also by the other object-oriented programming. Yes, same thing. If you suppose you have defined a class and you stored in that class in some header file, you can include that header file in some other program and you can use that. Next is, use of classes makes the code more and more maintainable. If an error occurs, then that corresponding class code can be changed. Other working modules need not be changed. Means in case of OOPS, it is very easy to detect error, because in this case we have divided the complex problem into different parts and each part is known as object. So it is very easy to identify in which class a problem is. So we have to change that code of that class, and other working classes need not to be modified. And the last advantage, the concept of classes allows a program to create new data type. It is basically a user defined data type. As predefined data type int float, you can create a user defined type with this keyword class. The drawbacks of object-oriented programming, it has basically different drawbacks, like it is complex to implement as comparison to procedural programming. And if some of the members are declared as private, then those members are not accessible by the objects of other class. Besides providing the security feature, it is also a drawback of OOPS that the private members of a class cannot be accessed outside the class. So these are the basically two main things in object oriented programming. One is object and another is class. So what is the concept of an object and class? Object is basically an instance of a class. You can say object is anything which has some properties and behavior, like any chair, table, human being, all of these are objects. Anything which has some properties and behavior is called an object. Or technically you can define it as it is an instance of a class. Objects are basically runtime entities. In C++, class variables are called objects because syntax of declaring an object is class name space object name. So you can call it as a class variable. Using objects, we can access data members and member function. If you want to access any member of a class, you can access it with the help of object only. The syntax is object name dot member name. Object represents a person, place or anything that have some properties and behavior that I told you earlier. A single class can create any number of objects. As in case of predefined types, you can declare multiple variable of same type. So in case of class, you can create number of objects of same class. Suppose a class is country, then different objects of that class is India, Japan, USA, etc. How to declare an object? The syntax to declare object is class name space object name. Suppose fruit is the class name, then F1 is the object name. So next concept is class. Class is basically defined as an entity in which data and functions are put together. Basically this class, it works as a wrapper for both data members and member function. Means if any member you will define as private in the class, it will not be accessed by the outside members of a class. So it will provide you data hiding. Syntax how to define a class is class is the keyword, then name of class, then body of class. Private, first of all, number of data members, then public section, number of member function, then body of class and semicolon. These private and public, these are called access specifiers, which basically provides access, means at what level the value of that variable is used. This is the example. Suppose I have created a class named employee with 3 data members, name, age and salary, and 2 member functions, input and display. Data members are by default private and member functions are by default public. And one more thing, there is one limitation of this data member section, means you cannot initialize any variable in this section. If you want to assign some value to a variable, you will assign with the help of these functions only. So how to assess members of a class? As I told you earlier, you can assess members of a class with the help of object only. So first of all, you have to create the object of that class, class name space object name. Then the syntax is object name dot member name. So if you want to assess any member of a class, the syntax is object name object of that class dot member of that class, then semicolon. As in this case, here I have defined, suppose the name of class is EMP, then object of class is E, then E dot input and E dot display. So these are basically 3 access specifiers: private, public and protected. So first is private. As I told you earlier, if you declare any member of a class as private, it will not be accessed outside the class definition. Means that part of class, that member of class is totally hidden from the outside world. Next access specifier is public. Public means global, whose scope is global. If you declared any member of a class as public, it can be accessed globally, means any member function outside the class can access the public data directly. And protected access specifier is basically used any member which is declared as protected in a class, it can be accessed by the member function of that class and the member function of a class which is inheriting the features of that class. So only the objects of those classes can access the protected members of this class. So these are 3 access specifiers. Now let us discuss what are the different features of object oriented programming. Basically we have main 4 features of object oriented programming. First is data encapsulation or data hiding. Next is inheritance, polymorphism and abstraction. So first one is data encapsulation. Data encapsulation basically means class works as a capsule for both data members and member function. As I told you earlier, if any member you declare as a private in a class, it cannot be accessed outside the class. So this feature will provide the data hiding. Next is inheritance. Inheritance means one object acquires the properties of another object. Means for data reusability, we will use this feature inheritance. Next is polymorphism. It is basically a Greek language word which is made up of two words, one is poly, another is morphos. Poly means many and morphos means forms, means many forms. There are basically two types, one is compile time polymorphism or early binding, another is runtime polymorphism or late binding. And the last feature is data abstraction. Abstract, you can say that anything whose implementation is not given, that is called abstract. In case of a class, suppose you have an unimplemented method in a class, so that function basically would be declared as abstract. And if any class have a single abstract method, that class also declared as abstract. And there is one limitation of that class, means you cannot create object of that class. If you can't create the object of that class, means you cannot access any member of that class. So any class that inherit that abstract class, it is the responsibility of that class to implement the abstract method of that class. Then only you can use other members of that class. So these are basically four features of object oriented programming. Here I have given the definition. Encapsulation means the detailed implementation of a component which can be hidden from rest of the system. It is binding of data and method together in a single entity, that is called encapsulation, data hiding. Here I have given an example. In case of encapsulation, you have to define some class. Here I have defined a class fact with two data members n and f, and two member function. One is input, which is entering a number, another is find, which is used to find the factorial of a number. Here I have closed that class with the help of semicolon. And in the main function, first of all I have created object of fact class, that is f1, and with the help of f1 dot input, how to assess member of a class, object name dot member function name. So here I have called first function, it will display enter a number, you will enter a number, suppose 5, then I have called a function find, it will calculate the factorial of 5, it will result you 120. Next concept is scope resolution operator. This is basically used to resolve scope of a class. In the previous example, as I have implemented both function in the same class, suppose as in this class I have declared two data members and two member function. I haven't implemented these function in this class. If you want to implement a member function of a class outside the class definition, you have to use this operator, scope resolution operator, and the symbol for this operator is colon colon. You have to put this colon twice, and syntax is first of all return type of function, then name of class, then scope resolution operator, then function name, then the same implementation. So scope resolution operator is basically used to resolve scope of a class. Constructor. Constructor is basically a special member function which is used to initialize an object. Why we call it special? Because it has some special features. As first is its name is same as that of class, it has no return type, it is automatically called upon object creation. It is different from simple function, that's why we call it as special function, because its name is same as that of class. It has no return type, not even void. It is automatically called upon object creation. And these are the different types as default constructor, parameterized constructor and copy constructor. Default constructor means constructor without any argument. Parameterized constructor means constructor with parameters or arguments. And copy constructor is basically used to create one object from another object. Here I have given some example of default constructor. I have defined a class named demo with one data member, and this is a default constructor. Name same as that of class, no return type, not even void, and this is a function which is displaying the value. When you will create object of a class, this constructor will automatically be called. However, in case of a simple member function, syntax is object name dot function name, but in case of constructor, it is automatically called upon object creation. This is the case of default constructor. In case of parameterized constructor, I have passed one parameter, that is the difference. And in case of copy constructor, syntax is you have to pass object of a class in as a parameter in that. This is the case of copy constructor. With this, thanks a lot.